The chair will now recognize Senator Alma Francis Heyliger for your 4 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning to my colleagues. Good morning to the testifiers. Good morning to the people of this territory. I am very happy and very much in support of this piece of legislation to really take the time out to, discuss and talk about all the accomplishments on this 50th anniversary of our sister high school here in the District of St. Thomas, St. John, Eudora Ken. As I listen to the testifiers speak of all the accomplishments and all the things that this school and the Devil Rays have done over the last 50 years, it is quite commendable. As a chicken hawk myself with a diploma from Charlotte Amalie High School, I have had many interactions over the years with Ivana Eudora Ken, especially with the Communications Art Showcase, where we had to go back and forth and really interact. And I really loved those, where we could really see and interact as two high schools and really learn from each other. And I thought that was such a great aspect of the interconnectivity of those high schools during that time. So I do appreciate especially even the musical aspect that we saw coming out of Eudora Ken over the years. That was a huge plus with them. And I thought that was something that showcased the talent of that school on a continuous basis. What I would like to ask of the testifiers or anyone that might know as it relates to the musical aspect, I might have to go with my colleague a little bit, where we might have to bring in education to give us a little bit more updates on that. But how do you see the future of Eudora Ken? How do you see when it comes to what the former principal spoke about, the underutilization of various aspects of the school? How do you feel about the future and what Eudora Ken can do on behalf of this community in pushing us forward?
Hi, Senator Heyliger. This is Dr. Wells Hedrington. I think the future for Ivana Eudora Ken is quite promising. I think one of the problems that we've struggled
Dr. Hendrington? Dr. Wells Hendrington, could you start from the top? You were coming in and out. Kindly proceed again.
Oh gosh, I hope I'm not.
Kindly proceed. I believe she may be frozen. If we could have everyone else perhaps take off their cameras, that probably will allow for us to have more bandwidth to hear Dr. Wells Hedrington. Yes, we just wanted to make sure we have sufficient bandwidth to hear your response. It is right, what it is. You can proceed. You can proceed.
I'm so sorry. Senator Heyliger, good question. I think for years, what we've been trying to do is duplicate services when it comes to offerings of courses in the career and technical field. Moving forward, we need to have focuses at each school and allow the children to have choice. I think that, Principal Wilkinson mentioned many courses that are being offered at Charlotte. But what I really liked about what he said is the marine industry. Ivana Eudora Ken is right next to the ocean. There's so many possibilities there that I think that we need to expand our thinking and really focus on maximizing what each school can do and really putting our resources into it. But I see Ivana Eudora Ken flourishing. Mr. Wilkinson, I share your sentiments in regards to the infrastructure. Trust me, we are going through the process and it is a process. I do also agree with your sentiments in terms of maintenance. We have a lot of work that we still need to get done to ensure that after these facilities are restored, that we can properly maintain them. But Senator Heyliger, I do think that there's much promise for Ivana Eudora Ken High School.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Senator Heyliger. You wanted to wrap up, or you're completed because your time has been called?
I just wanted to say in closing that I do appreciate the testifiers coming and sharing their thoughts on the school, and I am in full support of this legislation to really celebrate the teachers, the educators, and the students of Ivana Udorakan. Thank you.
Thank you kindly, Ms. Heyliger. Senator Milton, Senator Alma Francis Heyliger, you are recognized for your 4 minutes.
Thank you so much. Good morning again to my colleagues, to the testifiers, to the people of the territory. I definitely rise in support of this piece of legislation. Gloria Canegata Waterman, from all understanding from what has been shared here today, has had a marvelous life well lived. As she continue with all the things that she's been able to accomplish, I personally would like to thank her for her contributions to the education system, to our elected officials, to the public and the community as a whole. As she really, from listening here today, she pushed on as it relates to the preservation of our culture. I am a proud Virgin Islander, and I say this to everyone that even comes across my path and knows me. And I'm always happy to know that there are other proud Virgin Islanders that can go forward and represent us, not only here in the territory, but also on a national level. So, from what I am hearing and understanding of Ms. Canegata Waterman, that she has not only represented us well, she has brought honor to us here in the territory. And to really just speak to what is significant, what I repeatedly heard here today, noticed by listening to the testifiers, is the amount of growth and development that took place under her leadership. When you're dealing with the development of arts and extracurricular programs and the oversight of new school construction and development of the curriculum, I have to take this time out to applaud her. And I am so appreciative to really be an individual here today to really support this piece of legislation. And I would like to thank everyone that came out, like you said, to give her her flowers while she's living. Thank you so much, Madam Chair. And I'm giving up the rest of my time.
Thank you so much, Senator Francis Heyliger. Senator Alma Francis Heyliger, you are recognized for your point of inquiry.
Thank you. Good afternoon to my colleagues. To the chair, point of inquiry to the chair, to legal counsel. I'm trying to get a little bit of clarity just as I go along in this process. And one of the things that, in looking at all the documents, that February 23rd, 2010 document where Congress and the president had sent down, there was a section in there that spoke to an enabling act from 1976 that gave the authority to the Virgin Islands to create their constitution. Within that document, there are 5 things that act gave us authority to do. Specifically, it says that creating a constitutional convention for the drafting of existing territorial federal relationships, and they spoke to 1, recognize and be consistent with the sovereignty of the United States Virgin Islands and the supremacy of the provisions of the Constitution, treaties, laws, the United States applicable to the Virgin Islands, including provisions of the Organic Act and Revised Organic Act, and do not relate to local self-government. 2, provide for a Republican form of government consisting of all 3 branches, executive, legislative, and judicial. 3, contain a Bill of Rights. 4, deal with the subject matter of provisions of the Organic Act and Revised Organic Act that relates to self-government. And the last one, it gave us the authority to provide for the system of local courts consistent with the Revised Organic Act. I just want to know, in that act that gave us that authority according to the document that came from Congress, would that have precluded us from allowing us to just completely adopt the Revised Organic Act of 1954, or we would have just had to specifically follow those things in the act that they authorized us that we could do?
Through the chair to Senator Alma Francis Heyliger, nothing in public law 94-584 precludes the legislature from establishing a constitutional convention and adopt the Revised Organic Act of 1954.
Okay, thank you, Senator Francis Heyliger. Senator Alma Francis Heyliger, you are recognized for your 7 minutes.
Thank you so much.
Am I going to have an opportunity to respond to that statement?
It does not require a response. Senator Francis Heyliger, you're recognized.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon once again to my colleagues, to the testifiers in this block, as well as to the people of the territory. I first want to address my first set of questions, the League of Women Voters. You had spoken earlier in regards to a majority. And the question I want to ask, do you think it's more feasible, or the way that it's written in the bill, that a majority of 13 must vote on the final document? Or what are the benefits potentially of doing maybe a simple majority, or sticking with the standard 2/3 majority?
Thank you for the question. We were in support of what has been recommended by both Senator Jackson and Malik Sekou, that for the draft of the document that is going to go to Congress, that a simple majority would be sufficient. They were basing that decision on the experience at the 5th convention, and with their voting and the difficulties that they had had. And so we supported that recommendation for those reasons.
Okay, thank you. Senator Jackson, what impact do you think would be desired if, for example, we went ahead and utilized the Revised Organic Act as our Constitution? Or do you think we should utilize this process we're attempting to pass today? Senator Jackson?
Senator, if you would be kind enough, because my bandwidth is breaking up, so I did not hear the beginning of your question. If you could just repeat, because I'm using my cell phone for the audio. Thank you.
Okay. I want to know, what impact do you think it would be, whether on the people, on us as a whole, to utilize the Revised Organic Act as our Constitution versus utilizing the process that's before us here today?
Okay, wait. Just for clarity, you say utilizing the Constitution? I'm not clear.
The Revised Organic Act.
bill?
The Revised Organic Act of 1954.
Okay, thank you very much, Senator, for the question. I do believe that we should learn from our experiences. And I think that what several have proposed, that we adopt the Revised Organic Act or portions of it. That was the question posed to the community, to the voters. The voters responded, and we're here today with this particular measure to create a 6th constitutional convention to move forward with that in mind. I do believe that from our experience, at least from sitting on the 5th Constitutional Convention, from participating in the status referendum at that time, and the processes to where we are today, and the dynamics of our community today, that the process that is being recommended may prove to be much more fruitful than us repeating what we've done in the past. And that was made clear by the testimony from the League of Women Voters and others here, or at least one other here today.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, okay, very well. Thank you.
Mr. Emmanuel, do you see the opposite of that, potentially a negative impact for going ahead and utilizing a document that's been around for over 60 plus years?
Thank you very much for that question, Senator. Anything is possible, but I agree with the League of Women Voters, Dr. Sekou, and Senator Jackson that this is the most prudent process to follow.
So, okay. Well, as a representative of the people, I hear it from both sides. I do hear the public when they say, listen, we've tried it several times, so let's just get it over with, create a document utilizing the Revised Organic Act and make amendments. I also hear the other side of it. We spent all this time, money, and effort creating a document that had 9 points where the president and Congress returned and said they might be issues. So why can't we just strip out those 9, use that document, and move forward? Now, this piece of legislation is giving us an option to utilize some of that, utilize some of the Revised Organic Act. The delegates would have an option to either utilize nothing, just create something on their own, or pull from these documents to develop a new one. Does any of you feel there is a major difference by taking pieces from all of them and creating something new, or just potentially just going with the Revised Organic Act?
Can I answer that?
Go right
Senator?
ahead, sir.
The reality is that, and I think legal counsel could correct me if I'm wrong, the reality is that nothing can be done without the legislature authorizing a convention to do it. And if a convention has been closed, we can't just adapt. We have to have a convention created, as Senator Sarro wisely has suggested, to do this. That's the reality. Check with legal counsel.
We have 2 members here from the 5th Constitutional Convention, from what I'm understanding. I need to know what were some of the major challenges as to why, because I'm hearing a lot of back-end conversations that might not want to be discussed on air, but I genuinely want to get to the nitty-gritty of why we were not successful in a full completion of the 5th Constitutional Convention with all this time and money was spent. To be honest with you, my first venture into any type of political field, I was one of those that ran for the 5th Constitutional Convention. I think it was back in 2007. And when everyone was selected, I actually hoped and expected a document at the end of the process, but it didn't happen.
Time.
So between the 2 of you that sat on that Constitution, could you just respond and share with me what were some of the major issues, because we really don't want to repeat them again. Thank you, Ms. Chair.
I'll let Senator Jackson go first.
Professor,
Thank you very much.
Senator Jackson, you're here with
Senator,
us.
for the question. Well, Senator, first, we did create a document, and that document was presented to the governor as required by law. In fact, we had to take the governor to court to move the document forward to the White House and to Congress. The document there were provisions within the document that did not meet the constitutional requirements. And of course, during this hearing, there was a comment made in reference to the rights of Native Virgin Islanders, the definition of who is a Native Virgin Islander, and I'll leave Professor Emmanuel speak to some of the others.
Thank you, Senator Jackson. The biggest issue was that we came back with a document that the Department of Justice had concerns over. They never used the word unconstitutional. Lawyers don't do that. But when you read the last sentence of the Assistant Justice Attorney General's report, he mentioned that we could have voted on that document, notwithstanding the concerns. But nobody proposed that because he was saying that in 1980, President Reagan didn't agree with it, but he still said it should go to the people for a vote. For some reason, the fifth document never went to the people for a vote, and we can't go back and deal with that. But to answer your question directly, Senator Heyliger, Francis Heyliger, we did have a meeting to address those changes, but the meeting was adjourned without us getting that done, and that is a fact. And now you need to ask all the other members of the convention who are opposing the changes why they oppose them, because that is the real reason why we don't have a constitution right now. Because if we had made those changes and we had voted on them, we wouldn't have to be going through this right now.
Thank you so much, Senator Francis Heyliger. Senator Alma Francis Heyliger, you are recognized for your 4 minutes.
Good afternoon again to my colleagues. Good afternoon to the testifier. Good afternoon to the people of the territory. I'm not sure if you had shared in your testimony. I would like to know how many buildings does UVI have left to be named that could potentially generate, and what type of funding could you potentially anticipate in generating these funds?
Yeah, I don't have the exact number, so what I will give you is an estimate. We have 36 buildings altogether, only even including the ones that I just mentioned. It probably amounts to 6 buildings that will have names associated with them. So we have quite a few others that do not have names associated with them. And just as we were able to secure major gifts for the 3 recently, my goal would be that we can at least get a major portion of those. We have a policy, and the policy requires that for a new building, that 50% of that building cost would be paid by the donor. So for example, and I'm just going to use the nursing facility, once we are able to construct that facility, and let's just assume that it is around 4 to 5 million, then our goal would be to secure 50% of that from a, I'm sorry?
Continue.
Our goal would be able to obtain 50% of that. So with new buildings, we're able to require more. For existing buildings, the policy requires 30% of what that building cost is. So, for example, we have residence halls on our St. Thomas campus that don't have names. We call them East Hall and West Hall, etc. Because those are existing buildings, we can, based on the policy, if we can identify the donor, obtain 30%. I would estimate, for example, West Hall, when it was built, was worth $11 million. The value probably is a little higher than that now based on market changes. So we would be able to obtain 30% of 11, 12, 13 million, whatever the new value is, if we can identify the right donor.
Okay.
And what the track record. You're welcome.
I appreciate it. What I wanted to ask Ness, I wanted to ask of legal counsel because I needed some clarity as to the shifting around of certain things as to how the bill would be worded after the fact. One of my questions I would like to find out has to do with the striking of the word no at the beginning of the document, and it goes to say subject to subsection B, and it drops down and speaks to B, and it speaks to the University of the Virgin Islands. But the document also has a reference to another subsection B in it. And when you speak to that subsection B, it speaks to the agencies. So I wanted a little bit more clarity as to switching up and changing how this is worded. Would it change the entire context of this entire section of the law? But I see legal counsel has stepped out, so.
We can hold that question
Okay.
until legal counsel appears.
Well, thank you very much. So I will reserve the balance of my time and I will allow you to continue.
Senator Alma Francis Heyliger, I know you had a question earlier to the legal counsel, and if you could kindly restate your question for the benefit of the legal counsel so he can respond to you kindly.
Good afternoon again. As this relates to the bill currently as it stands, because I also have an amendment in front of me that could completely change the context of the bill as well. What it's asking, it says, first of all, it wants to strike no at the beginning of the section, inserting subject to subsection B. Now, within the title itself, there is reference to a subsection B within the title itself. In addition to that, on this document, it lists a specific subsection B that is supposed to be written, that's supposed to be now a part of this piece of document. The other concern, if we amend the document, there's a different subsection B. But the original bill speaks to striking at the beginning of it the word no and saying subject to subsection B. I am trying to get clarity on if either one of these are utilized. If we don't amend it, would the subsection B here listed on the bill, would the section to the top that we're amending would be now subject to that? Or if we also utilize the amendment, would it then be subject to the second B? If you understand what I'm saying.
You please recognize, one moment, Attorney Ayala. Go again now.
Through the chair to Senator Heyliger, the bill as is without the amendment, what it does in section 4 of Title 31, it removes, in fact, let me take it a little slower. It removes the no at the beginning of the paragraph and inserts subject to subsection B. Subsection B would actually be creating, in other words, the language in section 4 of Title 31 would now become subsection A. And then you add in subsection B, which would read as follows. The University of the Virgin Islands name, personal property, and so forth. And a certain condition, under certain conditions that the university would have to put in place to name those buildings or sections or whatever it is, or portions of the buildings and so forth. A subsection C, and with the amendment, would be added to exempt the Juan Luis Hospital, Medical Center, and so forth from the provisions of having to come to the legislature to name certain sections of those entities.
So I just want to make sure, as the law stands right now, none of this would affect the subsection B that is referenced within the current law. It only affects the B's, whether it's in the bill before us or the B inside of the amendment.
Remember, no subsection B exists now. You're creating a subsection B.
Okay, I think, listen to what I'm saying. Inside of the actual bill itself, the law itself references a subsection B. That's what I'm trying to ask. I want to make sure that does not get affected in any shape or form. If you pull up the actual law we're amending, right now it says no real or personal property of the government of the Virgin Islands or any subdivision thereof as defined by Title A, Section 253, subsection B, VIC Code. So that is what our law says right now. So I'm just trying to make sure when we put to the beginning of it, notwithstanding subject to subsection B, that in the code is not affected and we're only referencing the B that we're creating either in the bill or the B we're creating in the amendment. That's all I'm trying to get clarity
No, that is correct. Subsection B of 253 would not be affected because it's now going to become a, in other words, the requirement of subsection B would remain, and then you add in a C to exclude these entities, the Juan Luis Hospital and so forth. So no, it would not be affected.
Point of inquiry, Senator. Point of inquiry, Senator Francis Heyliger.
Thank you so much. I am also looking at the amendment that is before me with absolutely no reference of the University of the Virgin Islands. That's the first thing. Now, if I go back to the original bill, it specifically says striking and the University of the Virgin Islands. That will completely remove the university altogether from the current law. And what the law speaks to when it referenced Title I, Section 253, subsection 3, if you go and pull that up, it references all the boards and the agencies and all of these other things. So if we're going to amend this document and then completely strike UVI, all of these things were actually semi-autonomous and autonomous agencies that were specifically included in the law. And by removing UVI, you now remove our authority from what I'm processing. So I'm a little bit, that's why I'm here bearing down on this with the attorney, because this is how I, as a representative, am processing that our authority will be completely removed, because by striking it and then amending it, there's no reference to it in this here, and all it's going to do is completely take it out. So that is what I need clarity on. Thank you.
Senator Fred Gregory, you have a point of inquiry? Okay, Senator Alma Francis Heyliger, you have a point of information, and then we'll move on to the next senator to have their line of questioning.
Thank you. I just want to put on the record. Hello, good afternoon again. I want to put on the record in regards to this piece of legislation that while I understand Dr. Hall's need to fundraise, I also live in a very small community. And I want to make sure that people understand that a lot of things that is done nationally in a particular way does not always suit in this territory. Now, when you speak that across the board that this is how it's done, I took some time out and did research. And specifically in certain states, the legislature very much still controls a lot of things. For example, in South Carolina, they have a Heritage Act that does not allow their universities at all to name buildings. You have in the state of Florida where they have an annotated option where the universities are only allowed to name after living people. So I don't see where in a community this small, where in the states where it could be millions of people and you name something, the average person mightn't even know who that is. In our context, when you potentially are trying to fundraise, and me and my generation have to live with a building named after someone that might not even be fully incorporated into us or our culture just because of money, I do not wish to give up that right as a representative of the people. So that's all I'm trying to say. What? Thank you so much.
We have other Senator Francis Heyliger, point of inquiry.
Thank you. Madam Chair, to President Hall, I would like to just ask one simple question. If this law were not changed and you had to continue with the process, say for example, a donor comes forward and you would like to name a building after them, is it an issue for coming to get legislative approval? Would that stop you from a donor pursuing or a donor trying to still give you money if we are still part of the process? Thank you.
Yeah, I believe it adds another layer to a process that is already very difficult. I mean, getting individuals to give millions of dollars to a university for whatever purpose is a long and drawn out process. Those gifts that I just mentioned, they didn't come about through, one conversation. They are multiple conversations, negotiations, etc.
I understand when I understand when you expressed that before. I fully grasp that. But my question is, would it stop you if we are still a part of the process from doing so? I understand you feel I understand you feel it would be an additional level of work and it would be a little bit more cumbersome. But would it stop you from donations potentially coming in, or would it stop you from potentially continuing if getting legislative approval is just part of the process?
It's not going to stop me from trying. My fear is that it will stop donors from wanting to engage in the process, because it takes what is often a very sensitive process for them, and you would make it public. You would automatically have to make it public. And just to address the Senate President, I wasn't suggesting that today there was a debate about individuals, but I'm saying the process would require a similar type of debate as to whether the amount is enough, whether the person is the right person, etc. And most donors don't want to go through that. I'm just being honest. And so that's the thing that would be stopped, is my fear, because of the fact that it is a very sensitive, very personal for them, and you don't want to overly complicate a process that I think has controls built in already by the Board of Trustees.
Thank you.